The massive hall stretched so far that Jake Morrison could barely see the other end. He stood at a small podium wearing his best uniform, while hundreds of alien creatures watched him from their elevated seats. Some looked like giant insects made of crystal. Others seemed to be floating clouds of light. A few resembled nothing he could compare to anything on Earth. All of them were staring at him and the woman beside him. Lisa Grant held a tablet in her hands. She was trying not to show how nervous she felt. They had traveled for 2 weeks to reach this place. The Galactic Assembly was where all the important decisions were made. Every spacefaring species in the known universe sent representatives here. Today was supposed to be the day humanity joined them as equals. Jake cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. His words were instantly translated into 400 different languages by machines he did not understand. He explained why they had come. Earth needed help. A species called the Krell were coming to their solar system. The Krell did not negotiate or trade. They simply took what they wanted. They would strip every planet of resources and take every human as property. Earth needed weapons to defend itself. Earth needed the technology that every other species already had. The first alien to respond was Thexelar. He looked like a huge praying mantis made of sharp crystals. When he laughed, it sounded like breaking glass. The translation machine told Jake that Thexelar found their request amusing. Humans wanted to talk about war. How cute, how childish. Humans had barely figured out how to split atoms. They were trying to discuss military strategy with species that had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. Chancellor Morn spoke next. He had 3 heads on one body. Each head took turns speaking, which made following his words difficult. He said that humans fought with gunpowder and missiles like primitive creatures playing with fire. Their biggest weapons were atomic bombs that other species had stopped using thousands of years ago. Why should the Assembly waste time teaching warfare to such backwards beings? Lisa stepped forward. Her voice was steady even though Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. She explained that humanity was not asking for charity. Every species in the Assembly had access to something called the Technology Exchange Program. It let newer species learn from older ones. It let everyone share discoveries and grow together. Humans just wanted the same chance everyone else had. The Krell were coming. If Earth did not get help soon, there would be no humans left to have this conversation. High Archon Xylith interrupted her. Xylith glowed with soft blue light and her voice sounded like music. She said the Krell would not bother with Earth. Humans had nothing valuable. Their planets were poor in resources. Their population was tiny compared to real civilizations. In the grand scale of the galaxy, humans simply did not matter. If the Krell took Earth, it would be unfortunate but not important. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. He wanted to shout. He wanted to tell them that 3 billion lives mattered even if they seemed small to ancient aliens. But his training held. He spoke calmly. He reminded them that humans had contributed to galactic culture. Human music was popular. Human stories were enjoyed across many worlds. Human medical research had helped several species. Surely that counted for something. Thexelar made the laughing sound again. Yes, he said. Human entertainment was delightful. They made such charming music and touching stories. But entertainment and warfare were completely different things. War required advanced evolution. War needed sophisticated thinking. War demanded technology that humans could not possibly understand. The Krell might harvest human worlds, but that was simply how nature worked. The strong survived. The weak became resources for the strong. The vote happened quickly. Every representative pressed a button on their console. 400 species voted on whether to help humanity. The results appeared on a massive screen that floated in the center of the hall. The vote was unanimous. 0 species voted yes. 400 species voted no. Request denied. Jake and Lisa walked out of the hall in silence. Other aliens passed them in the corridors. None of them looked at the 2 humans. Some were talking to each other. The humans heard fragments of conversation through their translation earpieces. One alien mentioned how pathetic the human delegation looked. Only 2 representatives. Most species sent dozens. Another said humans could not afford to send more, because their economy still depended on digging resources out of the ground like animals. A third wondered why humans were even allowed to speak. Their average lifespan was less than 100 years. They barely lived long enough to learn basic science. When they reached their small quarters, Jake hit the wall with his fist. The advanced materials absorbed the impact completely. It did not even make a sound. He turned to Lisa. His voice was rough with emotion. They had called humans primitives. They had said human lives did not matter. They had laughed while condemning 3 billion people to death or slavery. Lisa sat down on the edge of the narrow bed. She stared at her tablet for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were cold in a way Jake had never seen before. She said they would build what they needed themselves. Jake started to argue. He pointed out what the aliens had said. Humanity was centuries behind. The technology gap was enormous. How could they possibly build weapons advanced enough to fight the Krell when species with thousands of years of experience said it was impossible? Lisa stood up. She began pulling up files on her tablet. Design documents from Earth companies, physics papers from universities, rejected applications from past attempts to join galactic programs. She said every single alien species in that hall had one thing in common. They had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. They had been powerful for so long they no longer remembered where power came from. They thought technology made them superior, but they were wrong. Jake asked what she meant. Lisa explained that humanity had something the aliens had lost. Humans still knew how to fight when victory seemed impossible. Humans still knew how to innovate when every option looked bad. Humans remembered that desperation created solutions that comfort never could. She pulled up a chart showing when the Krell would arrive. 18 months until they reached the outer colonies. 24 months until they reached Earth. Jake said 18 months was not enough time. No one could develop new weapons and build them and deploy them that fast. It was impossible. Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy expression. She said impossible was a word that humans had proven wrong many times before. Humans went from first flight to landing on the moon in 66 years. Humans built a global communication network in 1 generation. Humans split atoms and mapped genetics and never stopped asking what if. She said they would do what humans always did. They would look at an impossible problem and solve it anyway. 6 months had passed since the humiliation at the Galactic Assembly. Colonel Ben Carter stood behind thick glass looking down at a massive underground hangar. The space was buried deep under the desert where satellites could not see it. The hangar was so large that 3 aircraft carriers could fit inside with room to spare. Thousands of people moved around the floor working on something that should not exist. Ben turned to the scientists and engineers gathered around him. He asked for a status report. Lisa Grant stepped forward first. She had dark circles under her eyes from too many sleepless nights. She explained that they had finished the theoretical framework for the quantum displacement drive. It was not faster than light travel like the aliens used. It was something different. It let ships jump short distances instantly by manipulating space-time on a tiny scale. The aliens used stable wormholes because they had unlimited energy. Humans were using quantum tunneling because they had learned to accomplish more with less. Henry Brooks spoke next. He was a big man with gray hair, who had been designing weapons longer than most of the team had been alive. He said the kinetic accelerators were ready. Humans were not trying to match alien plasma cannons or antimatter weapons. Instead, they had gone back to basics. Mass times velocity equals force. They had built electromagnetic rails that could accelerate chunks of tungsten to almost the speed of light. Each piece of metal hit with the power of a nuclear bomb. The system could fire 1,600 times per minute. Colonel Sarah Blake added that aliens used energy weapons because energy weapons were efficient. But efficiency assumed you had time for a long fight. Humans were planning for something different. They assumed they would only get one chance, so every system was designed to deliver maximum damage in minimum time. Everything was built around hitting first and hitting hard. Ben nodded and asked about armor. Lisa brought up a hologram showing layers of different materials. She explained that humans could not make the exotic materials aliens used. Humans did not have access to crystallized dark matter or neutronium plating, so they invented something new. The outer hull was made of ceramic mixed with aerogel. When an energy weapon hit the surface, the top layer would explosively evaporate. This dispersed the beam before it could penetrate deeper. Each section could take dozens of hits before wearing out. It was not as strong as alien armor, but it cost far less and could be replaced quickly. Ben asked what happened if enemies used physical projectiles instead of energy. Beams. Henry activated another display showing hexagonal plates. He called it an active defense grid. Thousands of small explosive charges were embedded in the hull. Sensors detected incoming objects and detonated charges to intercept them. It was like reactive armor on a tank, but in 3 dimensions and fully automated. Aliens did not use anything like this because they trusted their shields. Humans could not make shields that strong, so they made armor that fought back. Sarah asked about the crew. Lisa said 12 people. The room went quiet. Ben repeated the number. 12. For a ship that big, alien cruisers carried hundreds of crew members. Lisa said that was exactly the point. Aliens automated simple tasks, but relied on large crews for decisions and repairs and redundancy. They could afford to lose people. Humans could not. So everything that could be automated was automated. The ship needed only 12 people. 1 commander, 1 pilot, 2 engineers, 4 weapons officers, 2 system specialists, 2 tactical coordinators. Sarah pointed out this put enormous pressure on each person. Lisa agreed. But it also meant humans could build more ships with limited personnel. It meant crews trained together and trusted each other completely. It meant decisions could be made instantly without committees or chains of command. Aliens coordinated fleet actions through bureaucracy. Humans were building ships where 12 people could act as one organism. Ben looked down at the vessel taking shape below. They had named it the Defiance. He thought the name fit perfectly. He asked about power generation. Henry smiled. This was his favorite part, he said. Primary power came from deuterium-helium fusion. Nothing special by galactic standards. But they had added something aliens had abandoned long ago. Battery banks. Massive capacitors that stored excess energy. Aliens generated power as needed, because they had support networks and repair stations. Humans were designing for sustained combat far from any help. The batteries let them spike power output to 300% for short bursts. Aliens optimized for efficiency. Humans were optimizing for survival. Ben asked when the ship would be ready. Lisa said 4 weeks for the Defiance. 7 more ships were already under construction. Orbital shipyards were working 24 hours a day. Every nation on Earth was contributing. Automobile factories had been converted. Electronics plants had been repurposed. Even farms were making components. The entire species was mobilized. Ben thought about the announcement 6 months ago. Jake Morrison had broadcast to the whole planet. He told everyone the truth. The galaxy thought humans were worthless. The Krell were coming in 12 months. Humanity could either accept extinction or build their own salvation. The response had been unprecedented. Billions of humans who had been divided by borders and beliefs united behind one goal. Not because they suddenly loved each other, but because they hated the alternative more. Sarah asked about testing. They could not fly these ships anywhere without the galaxy noticing. Lisa explained they had built simulation facilities using advanced virtual reality. Crews would train in digital environments that felt completely real. They had modeled every known alien ship, every weapon, every tactic humans had observed. Each crew would fight 10,000 virtual battles before ever seeing real combat. Ben asked what happened if the simulations were wrong. Lisa said simply that they would adapt. Adapting was what humans did. Adapting was what humans had always done. Aliens had the same technology for thousands of years. They used the same tactics for even longer. They had become predictable. Humans had to reinvent themselves constantly just to survive on their own planet. Adaptability was their greatest weapon, and the aliens had forgotten it existed. Ben looked at each face in the room. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, strategists, all exhausted, all determined, all working on something the galaxy said was impossible. He told them they had 4 months until the Krell arrived. 4 months to finish construction and complete training and deploy a fleet. 4 months to prove humanity deserved its place among the stars. Or 4 months to make sure that when they fell fighting. Either way, the galaxy was going to learn something. A young engineer in the back asked what they would learn. Ben smiled grimly. They would learn that humans were very bad at accepting no for an answer. The work continued day and night. In orbit above Earth, massive construction platforms assembled components shipped up from the surface. Each ship took shape piece by piece. Weapons were installed and tested. Armor plating was attached. Engines were calibrated. The quantum displacement drives required precision that pushed manufacturing to its absolute limits. Down in the Mojave facility, the first crew began training. 12 men and women entered the simulation pods. The pods closed around them, and suddenly they were on the bridge of a warship. Everything felt real. The hum of engines, the glow of displays, the gentle vibration of the deck. They ran through basic operations, navigation, weapons targeting, damage control, communication protocols. Then the simulations turned hostile. Alien ships appeared on sensors. The crew had to react. Some simulations they won. Most simulations they died. Each death taught them something. They learned to anticipate enemy movements. They learned to coordinate their actions. They learned to think not as 12 individuals but as one entity with 12 parts. Other crews joined them. Each crew trained separately but used shared data. When one crew discovered an effective tactic, all the others learned it. When one crew made a fatal mistake, all the others knew to avoid it. The collective knowledge grew day by day. The Defiance launched from its orbital dock 3 weeks after Ben had given his speech. The other 7 ships followed over the next 2 weeks. They did not look beautiful. They looked dangerous. Every line was functional. Every surface served a purpose. These were not exploration vessels. These were not diplomatic ships. These were instruments of war built by a species that had run out of options. 3 years had passed since the battle that changed everything. Admiral William Drake walked through the observation deck of Unity Station. The massive structure hung in orbit above Earth. Its rotating sections provided artificial gravity for tens of thousands of humans and aliens who lived and worked together. Ambassador Thexelar walked beside him. The crystalline alien had become an unexpected friend over the years. He was one of the first to genuinely apologize for how the Assembly had treated humanity. Thexelar said it was remarkable what humans had accomplished. William replied that they had motivation. Thexelar said it was more than motivation. Humans had the ability to turn adversity into advantage. The galaxy was still studying how they accomplished what they did. William smiled and said humans were still not sharing all their secrets. Some innovations they kept to themselves. Thexelar acknowledged that was their right. He suspected humans learned that particular strategy from the aliens. They moved to a window overlooking a construction bay. Inside, human and alien engineers worked side by side on a new type of vessel. It incorporated human adaptive design with alien material science. It was something neither species could have built alone. Thexelar noted that the joint development program had exceeded all projections. Human engineers brought perspectives aliens had not considered in centuries. Alien materials scientists provided resources humans could not synthesize. Together, they were creating technologies that benefited everyone. William said that was the idea. Competition drove innovation, but collaboration drove it faster. Humans learned that the hard way. Lisa Grant approached. She now served as Director of Unified Technologies, the department responsible for integrating human and galactic science. She said they had results from the latest test. William asked what they found. Lisa grinned. The hybrid drive system worked. They successfully combined human quantum displacement with alien warp generation. The test ship achieved stable faster-than-light travel with triple the efficiency of conventional systems. Thexelar shifted in excitement. This would revolutionize galactic travel. The energy savings alone would be enormous. Lisa pointed out it never would have happened if humans had not been forced to develop their own approach. Aliens had perfected warp drives and stopped looking for alternatives. Humans could not build traditional warp drives, so they found a different solution. Combined, they exceeded what either species could do alone. Thexelar said this was happening across multiple fields. Human medical researchers developed treatments aliens thought impossible. Human agricultural specialists increased food production on alien colony worlds by 40%. Human cultural exports influenced art and entertainment across hundreds of worlds. Lisa said in return humans gained centuries of knowledge. Human hospitals now cured diseases that would have killed millions. Human ships traveled to other star systems. Human people lived and worked alongside dozens of alien species. It was a fair exchange. William said quietly, it was more than fair. It was what should have been offered 3 years ago. An uncomfortable silence fell. Thexelar finally said William was right to remind them of that failure. The Assembly had commissioned a review of membership protocols. They never wanted to repeat the mistake they made with humanity. William said good, because humans learned something from that experience. The galaxy's hierarchy was not based on how long you had technology. It was based on what you did with what you had. Humans did not have alien materials. They did not have alien processing power. They did not have centuries of refinement. But they had the ability to look at problems from new angles, to adapt and overcome, to refuse to accept that something could not be done. He turned to face Thexelar directly. That was what the assembly almost destroyed, not just humanity but the perspective they brought. Every species in the galaxy started from nothing. They all had to innovate to survive, but somewhere along the way most of them stopped. They reached good enough and stayed there. They forgot that progress had no destination. Thexelar said softly that humans reminded them. Every day, with every innovation, with every impossible solution to an unsolvable problem, humans reminded them that they had become complacent. Jake Morrison joined the group. He now served as Earth's chief ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. He said they received word from the outer colonies. The new shield generators were operational. Combined human and alien design. Human reactive defense concepts with alien energy manipulation. Jake added with a slight smile that the alien chancellor sent his regards. Apparently all three of his heads were impressed. William laughed. He remembered when those same three heads told humans they were too primitive to understand real warfare. Jake said to be fair, humans proved him wrong rather dramatically. The entire galaxy watched them destroy a harvester fleet, with tactics none of them had considered. Humans turned their technological disadvantages into strategic advantages. That tended to make an impression. Lisa said it was more than that. Humans showed the galaxy something they had forgotten. Desperation drove innovation in ways comfort never could. The Galactic Assembly had peace and stability for so long they stopped pushing boundaries. They optimized existing solutions instead of seeking new ones. William said until humans came along. Thexelar corrected that it was until humans had no choice but to innovate or die. And humans chose to live. More than that, humans chose to thrive. In 3 years, they went from fighting for survival to leading collaborative research programs across multiple fields. They shifted from being dismissed as primitive to being sought after as innovators. Admiral Drake looked out at the ships passing below, at the station around them, at the mixture of human and alien personnel working together. He said the best part was that 3 years ago, humans built the ultimate war machine because they had to. They created weapons systems that terrified the galaxy. They developed tactics no one had seen before. They became dangerous. He paused and his expression softened. But today, those same engineers were building medical facilities. Those same tactical specialists were coordinating relief efforts. Those same innovations that saved them in war were improving lives in peace. Humans built a war machine, yes, but they chose to use it to forge peace instead. Thexelar said the Galactic Assembly was grateful for that choice. There were those who feared humans would seek revenge for the initial rejection. Jake admitted they considered it. There were voices calling for isolation, for showing the galaxy exactly what humans could do if they wanted to hurt anyone. But they realized something important. The galaxy did not understand humans because humans had not given them reason to. Humans were isolated by choice, focused on their own world, their own problems. When they finally reached out, they expected to be welcomed as equals without having earned that respect. Thexelar said firmly that did not excuse what the Assembly did. Leaving humans to face the Krell alone was wrong regardless of human isolation. Jake agreed it did not excuse it, but it helped them understand it. And understanding was the foundation of cooperation. Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing current joint projects. Humans were working with 17 different civilizations on 43 collaborative initiatives: medical research, agricultural development, energy systems, materials science, even art and cultural exchanges. Every project combined human adaptive approach with alien knowledge base. William said the results exceeded what either side could achieve alone. That was the lesson everyone learned. Diversity of thought, diversity of approach, diversity of experience. Those were strengths, not weaknesses. A young officer approached and saluted Admiral Drake. She said the ceremony was about to begin. William nodded and asked if they were ready. This was something he wanted them to see. They made their way to the central auditorium, a massive space that could accommodate thousands. Today it was filled to capacity. Humans and aliens sat together, the lines between species blurred by shared purpose and mutual respect. On the stage, a monument was being unveiled. It depicted 8 ships rendered in a mixture of human metals and alien materials. Beneath it, an inscription read that this was dedicated to those who stood when others would not, to those who built when told they could not. To those who fought when surrender was expected, humanity remembers. William explained it was not just a monument to the battle. It was a reminder that humans were once dismissed as irrelevant, that they were once left to face extinction alone, that they were once mocked for thinking they could defend themselves. The covering fell away, revealing the full monument. The audience, both human and alien, rose in respectful silence. William continued that they did not display this out of bitterness. They displayed it to remember who they were, to remember that they were the species that looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch us anyway," to remember that their greatest strength was not technology or weapons or strategies. It was their refusal to accept that something could not be done. He looked at Thexelar, and to remind their allies that the galaxy was better when they worked together than when they stood divided. The Assembly did not believe in humans 3 years ago. They did now. That change, that growth, that willingness to admit error and adjust course. That was why humans chose cooperation over revenge. Because a galaxy that could learn from its mistakes. The Krell Harvester fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly when predicted. 47 massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Each vessel was the size of a city. Their hulls were organic. They pulsed with bioluminescent light that served as communication between ships. Commander William Drake sat in the command chair of the Defiance. He watched the sensor displays as the enemy fleet oriented toward the inner planets. Around him, 11 other people worked at their stations. Each person monitored multiple systems at once. Lieutenant Amy Scott reported from the tactical station. The Krell were in harvester configuration. Their ships were biological and designed for extracting planetary resources. Their defensive capabilities were moderate. Their weapons were meant for suppressing resistance on the ground. Commander Julie Foster added from the pilot station that the Krell were not expecting a fight. Their formation was optimized for fuel efficiency, not combat readiness. William studied the display carefully. The Krell had harvested hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. They were efficient and methodical and completely without mercy. Their ships would strip a planet of everything useful. They would process all materials into standardized units. Any native populations were resources to be cataloged and harvested along with everything else. But as Julie noted, they were not prepared for a battle. Why would they be? The galaxy had made it clear. Humanity was primitive, irrelevant, not worth defending. Lieutenant Peter Grant reported from communications that the other ships were ready. All 8 vessels were in position, 8 ships. That was humanity's entire deep space combat fleet. 96 humans against a swarm that had conquered hundreds of worlds. William activated the fleet-wide channel. He told everyone they knew the plan. They were not trying to fight fair. They were trying to win. The human vessels had positioned themselves using their quantum displacement drives. They were scattered across the system in locations that seemed random. To Krell sensors, if they noticed the small signatures at all, the human ships looked like navigational hazards or debris. Amy reported that the Krell were beginning harvesting operations on the outer colonies. Mars Station was broadcasting distress signals. Europa facility had gone silent. William felt anger but forced it down. They had evacuated the outer colonies 3 weeks ago. Every human in the system was either on Earth or in the fleet. The distress signals were automated. They were designed to draw the Krell deeper into the system. Closer to the trap, Julie reported that 5 harvester ships were breaking formation. They were heading toward Mars. They were taking the bait. William ordered all ships to activate stealth mode. The Defiance went dark. Power systems dropped to minimum levels. Heat sinks absorbed the thermal signature. The armor plates shifted to scatter radar. The aliens had sophisticated sensors, but those sensors were calibrated to detect conventional ships. The human vessels running cold and using quantum displacement were effectively invisible. The 5 Krell harvesters approached Mars. Their massive forms dwarfed the colony installations. Energy beams lanced out and began systematically disassembling the human infrastructure. Amy said quietly that range to target was 200,000 kilometers. Weapons were charged. Targeting solutions were locked. William ordered all ships to prepare to fire. Then, after a pause that felt like forever, he said, "Execute." 8 human warships materialized from nothing. Their quantum drives placed them in perfect firing positions around the Krell formation. Before the aliens could register the new contacts, the kinetic accelerators fired. The tungsten slugs traveled at nearly the speed of light. There was no warning. No time to raise shields or evade. The projectiles simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another. The first harvester ship died in 3 seconds. Over 200 projectiles struck the biological hull before it could react. The kinetic energy was devastating. The organic armor that could regenerate from energy weapon damage had no defense against relativistic impacts. The vessel came apart like an egg struck by a hammer. Amy reported that Target 1 was destroyed. Targets 2 and 3 had critical damage. 4 and 5 were attempting to flee. William ordered them not to let the Krell escape. All ships switched to pursuit mode and hunter-killer protocols. The human vessels phased through space. They appeared alongside the fleeing harvesters. Half the ships continued kinetic bombardment. The other half deployed missiles. Each warhead contained a shaped nuclear charge designed to penetrate biological armor. The second harvester died spinning. Its propulsion organs were severed by kinetic strikes. The third detonated when a nuclear missile breached its central core. The fourth and fifth tried to return fire. Their bioplasma weapons tracked toward the human ships. Julie announced incoming fire. Point defense was active. The active defense grid came alive. Thousands of small explosive charges detonated in precise patterns. They created a wall of shrapnel that intercepted the plasma bolts. The reactive ablative armor handled what got through. Layers of ceramic composite explosively vaporized to dissipate the energy. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh reported from below decks that armor was holding. Damage was minimal. The fourth and fifth harvesters died within seconds of each other. They were overwhelmed by coordinated fire from multiple human ships. Amy said all targets were eliminated. The enemy fleet was responding. The main body was altering course toward their position. William watched as 42 remaining Krell vessels changed formation. They moved from harvesting mode to combat readiness. They were slower now, more cautious. The humans had proven themselves a threat. Good. William ordered all ships to phase out. They would regroup at Rally Point Gamma. Let the Krell chase shadows. The human fleet vanished again. Their quantum drives relocated them across the system. The Krell fleet continued toward Mars, finding nothing but debris and empty space. Julie said the aliens were confused. They were not used to prey that fought back. Their doctrine was built around suppressing ground resistance, not engaging hostile fleets. William said they would confuse them more. He opened the channel to other ships. They had proven they could hurt the Krell. Now they would prove they could outthink them. Alpha Team would harass. Gamma Team would position for the second trap. They were going to make the Krell very angry, and then they were going to make them dead. Over the next 6 hours, the human fleet executed guerrilla warfare on a stellar scale. They would appear and strike and vanish before the Krell could respond. Kinetic bombardments from impossible angles. Nuclear missile ambushes using planets for cover. Hit-and-run attacks that never gave the aliens time to organize defense. The Krell lost 12 more ships. Humanity lost none. Peter reported that the Krell were broadcasting on all frequencies. The translation system said they were calling for reinforcements from the Galactic Assembly. William felt cold satisfaction. Good, he said. Let them call. Let the entire galaxy hear that the primitive humans were winning. Amy said with concern that the Krell were adapting. Their formations were tighter. They were dedicating ships to pure sensor duty. They were learning from human tactics, William said. Of course they were. No one expected them to stay stupid. He asked Julie how much time until the final phase. Julie reported 18 minutes. All orbital platforms reported ready status. William nodded. The harassment campaign had served its purpose. Draw the Krell fleet deeper into the system. Make them angry enough to commit their full force to hunting the human ships. Position them exactly where humanity wanted them. He ordered all ships to begin withdrawal to Earth orbit. Make it look desperate. Make it look like they were out of options. The human fleet fell back toward humanity's homeworld. The Krell pursued. To the aliens, it must have looked like victory. The pest ships were retreating. Earth lay undefended. What the Krell did not know was that Earth had always been the killing ground. Julie announced they were crossing the orbital defense. Perimeter 54321 marked deathworldly. Trap sprung. Thousands of satellites that had been disguised as communication equipment suddenly activated. Each one was a weapons platform loaded with kinetic accelerators. They had been positioned over months, powered down and waiting, invisible to casual sensor scans. The Krell fleet sailed into a sphere of crossfire. From every angle, tungsten projectiles streaked through space at near light speeds. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The aliens had focused on pursuing the human ships. They had ignored the human planet. Fatal mistake. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly convened 12 hours after the Krell fleet was destroyed. Representatives from 400 civilizations crowded into the hall. Their conversations created noise that even the translation systems could not fully organize. Ambassador Thexelar watched the tactical replay for the 7th time. The data was impossible. 47 harvester ships destroyed by 8 primitive vessels in less than 12 hours. It was impossible, and yet it had happened. Chancellor Morn insisted this must be an error in the data. Humans did not possess technology for these results. They had been denied access to advancement programs. High Archon Xylith said the data had been verified. Multiple observation posts confirmed the engagement. The human vessels used tactics and weapons systems they had never encountered. More disturbing was how the humans used their apparent technological limitations as strategic advantages. Texlar demanded an explanation. Xylith explained that humans could not generate shields as powerful as alien shields, so they developed armor that treated incoming fire as an expendable resource. Humans could not match alien sensor ranges, so they developed stealth systems optimized to exploit gaps in detection grids. Humans could not field large crews, so they automated their ships to a degree that would be considered reckless. Every limitation became an innovation. Morn said slowly that the humans had been planning this since the Assembly denied their petition. They took the rejection and used it as motivation. Ambassador Krellix added that it was worse than planning. Humans had been studying the galaxy. Every species that denied them. Every technology refused. Every tactic revealed in alien conflicts. The humans observed and analyzed and designed specifically to counter everyone. Thexelar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Not of the humans themselves, but of what they represented. A species given no choice but to innovate. A species pushed to the edge that responded by becoming more dangerous than anyone anticipated. He said they needed to discuss response options. The humans had demonstrated hostile capabilities. They destroyed a harvester fleet operating under galactic law. The Krell had harvesting rights throughout that sector. Xylith corrected him. The Krell had harvesting rights. Past tense. The humans declared their system and colonies as protected territory. They claimed sovereignty. Morn argued that humans could not do that. They lacked qualifications for territorial authority. They had not met technological or social or defensive requirements. Xylith pointed out that humans just destroyed a harvester fleet with 8 ships. That satisfied the defensive requirement rather conclusively. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives called for military action against humanity. Allowing such defiance would encourage other species to resist established order. Others urged caution. The humans had demonstrated tactical capabilities that exceeded their technological profile. Finally, Counselor Vareth requested recognition. The ancient being had served on the Assembly for over 3,000 years. He rarely spoke. When he did, the entire galaxy listened. Vareth said the humans had revealed something the galaxy had forgotten. They reminded everyone that technology was not the same as capability. The Assembly had spent centuries perfecting existing systems. They had reached what they considered optimal solutions and stopped innovating. Humans forced to compete without alien advantages, innovated in ways no one had considered in generations. Thexler asked if Vareth was suggesting the denial had been wrong. Vareth replied that he was suggesting they made a catastrophic miscalculation. They assessed humans based on technology and dismissed their potential. They failed to account for the most dangerous trait any species could possess, the ability to adapt under pressure. Now they faced a choice. They could attempt to suppress humanity, which might succeed but would cost dearly, and would inspire exactly the resistance they sought to avoid. Or they could acknowledge their error and adjust policies accordingly. Morn asked if Vareth wanted to reward human aggression. Vareth said bluntly that he wanted to survive their stupidity. Humans did not attack the Assembly. They defended themselves against a threat the Assembly refused to help them face. They followed no galactic laws because those laws clearly did not protect them. They built unauthorized weapons because they were denied authorized alternatives. Every action humans took was a direct consequence of the decision to abandon them. The hall fell silent. It was a silence of uncomfortable realization. Xylith asked what Vareth proposed. Vareth said they should offer humans full membership in the Galactic Assembly, immediate access to all technological exchange programs, full territorial sovereignty, and they should do it with an apology for their previous judgment. Thexlar protested that humans would see it as weakness. Vareth corrected that humans would see it as respect, which was what the Assembly failed to show before. He told them to consider something. If they made enemies of humans now, how long before humans applied their adaptive capabilities to military expansion? They built a fleet capable of destroying a harvester swarm in 6 months. What could they build in 5 years? 10 years. The Assembly had opportunity to make humans allies instead of adversaries. He suggested they take it. The vote was called. 347 civilizations voted to extend full membership to humanity. 53 abstained. None voted against. The galaxy had learned what it meant to underestimate humans. Meanwhile, on Earth, a different meeting was taking place. President Catherine sat in a secure briefing room beneath the Capitol. Around her were leaders of every nation and commanders of the human fleet. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant had returned from their diplomatic posting to help coordinate Earth's response. Jake reported that the Galactic Assembly sent an offer: full membership, complete technology access, recognition of territorial claims. They were giving humans everything they had asked for 6 months ago. Commander William Drake, attending by video link, asked if they were supposed to just accept. After the Assembly sentenced them to extinction, Catherine said that was the question. Should they take the offer and integrate with galactic civilization, or refuse and continue on their own path? Lisa leaned forward and said there were strategic advantages to both options. Accepting gave access to technologies that could advance humanity by centuries. Medical advances, manufacturing techniques, scientific knowledge. But accepting also meant entering a system that clearly demonstrated its willingness to sacrifice species it considered inferior. General Marcus Stone added that refusing maintained independence but also isolation. Humans proved they could defend themselves, but they had only faced the Krell. There were species in the galaxy that made the Krell look primitive. William said there was a third option. Accept the offer but do not trust it. Take their technology. Learn their systems. But keep building human weapons. Integrate with the galaxy on human terms, not theirs. Catherine nodded slowly. A trust but verify approach. Become part of their civilization while maintaining capability to defend themselves if betrayed again. Jake admitted it was cynical. But 6 months ago, the Assembly voted unanimously to let humans die. A little cynicism seemed warranted. Lisa said quietly that humanity had changed. In 6 months, they went from a fractured species barely capable of unified action to a civilization that could field advanced weapons and coordinate global industrial production. They did it out of necessity, but they did it. The question was not just about dealing with the galaxy. It was about who humans wanted to be as a species. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated her words. William said the Galactic Assembly thought humans were primitive. They should show them something different. Show them a species that could be both warriors and diplomats, that could build weapons of war and pursue peace, that could defend itself absolutely while still engaging constructively. Humans did not have to choose between isolation and integration. They could forge their own path. Catherine looked around the room and saw nods of agreement. They would accept membership, take the technology, open diplomatic relations, but also continue building and maintaining their own fleet, develop their own innovations, never again allow themselves to be in a position where survival depended on someone else's mercy. She stood, and everyone followed. The galaxy mocked them when they asked for help. The galaxy learned to respect them when they helped themselves. Now they would teach the galaxy what it meant when humans decided to become a galactic power on their own terms.